first we're gonna blah, blah. Okay, I said the blah blah. Guys, joy. We are going to be reading the Bible, but wait, we're going to be reading a story. But sorry, I just tongue twist.
This is on the bloopers reel.
Yep, the bloopers.
No.
I'm just joking.
Just keep it going.
Hope you guys enjoy. We are going to be reading a story, but first we're reading the Bible, and then you're going to be doing the synopsis about the Hittite warrior.
No.
And then we're going to be
Pilgrim's Progress.
we're going to be doing synopsis on Pilgrim's Progress. I wanted you to know something blows up.
Something blows up.
Something blows up, right, Dad?
Sure.
And also, we're going to be reading the Pilgrim's Progress. Hope you guys make sure to like and subscribe and subscribe to the video.
In your Yoda voice, it has begun. I got my hair cut off today. All right, so we're in the book of Exodus, chapter 5. This is the English Standard Version. Let me begin. Afterward, Moses and Aaron went and said to Pharaoh, "Thus says the Lord, the God of Israel, let my people go, that they may hold a feast to me in the wilderness." But Pharaoh said, "Who is the Lord that I should obey his voice and let Israel go? I do not know the Lord, and moreover, I will not let Israel go." Then they said, "The God of the Hebrews has met with us. Please let us go a 3 days' journey into the wilderness, that we may sacrifice to the Lord our God, lest he fall upon us with pestilence or with the sword." But the king of Egypt said to them, "Moses and Aaron, why do you take the people away from their work? Get back to your burdens." And Pharaoh said, "Behold, the people of the land are now many, and you make them rest from their burdens." The same day Pharaoh commanded the taskmasters of the people and the foremen, "You shall no longer give the people straw to make bricks, as in the past. Let them go and gather straw for themselves. But the number of bricks that they made in the past you shall impose on them. You shall by no means reduce it, for they are idle. Therefore they cry, 'Let us go and offer sacrifice to our God. Let heavier work be laid on the men, that they may labor at it, and pay no regard to lying words.' So the taskmasters and the foremen of the people went out and said to the people, 'Thus says Pharaoh, I will not give you straw. Go and get your straw yourselves, wherever you can find it, but your work will not be reduced in the least.' So the people were scattered throughout all the land of Egypt to gather stubble for straw. The taskmasters were urgent, saying, 'Complete your work, your daily task each day, as when there was straw.' And the foremen of the people of Israel, from Pharaoh's taskmasters had set over them, were beaten and were asked, 'Why have you not done all your task of making bricks today and yesterday as in the past?' Then the foremen of the people of Israel came and cried to Pharaoh, 'Why do you treat your servants like this? No straw is given to your servants, yet they say to us, "Make bricks." And behold, your servants are beaten, but the fault is in your own people.' But he said, 'You are idle, you are idle. That is why you say, "Let us go and sacrifice to the Lord." Go now and work. No straw will be given you, but you must still deliver the same number of bricks.' The foremen of the people of Israel saw that they were in trouble when they said, 'You shall by no means reduce the number of bricks, your daily task each day.' They met Moses and Aaron, who were waiting for them as they came out from Pharaoh, and they said to them, 'The Lord look on you and judge, because you have made us stink in the sight of Pharaoh and his servants, and have put a sword in their hand to kill us.' Then Moses turned to the Lord and said, 'O Lord, why have you done evil to this people? Why did you ever send me? For since I came to Pharaoh to speak in your name, he has done evil to this people, and you have not delivered your people at all.'" So I just want to point out that the people said something very similar when they were in the wilderness, and they said, "Why did you take us out into this wilderness so we can die here? And we were better off in Egypt." Well, and Moses is saying, "Why did you send me into Egypt to talk to the Pharaoh, now we're worse off than we were before, right? Okay. So maybe the people learned from their leader how to whine and complain to God. I don't know. It's just a thought. And Kimmy has a thought that she's going to say now, too.
When I was reading that passage, they then go, it was like a whole chapter, and the subtitle was, "The People Complain."
Yep. The
And
people do complain.
they
They
were like-
complain a lot, actually.
They were like, in Egypt we had so much food. We had melons and apples and wheat and barley and yada yada yada.
Yep. All right. So, we are in the. So Christian went with Pliable, and they were going, and everything was hunky dory. And then all of a sudden, they went to a slough, and I found out yesterday that it can be pronounced slough or slough, and slough is the English pronunciation, and I think it was in Alaska where we lived, and they had slough, and it was like a creek. So, but they got to this creek, and the water just washed them away, and whoosh! And then there was an explosion because JJ said that it happened, and then there was no more Christian and no more Pliable. Here's Kimberly to say how it really happened.
There was an explosion underwater and it sucked them in with the lava.
Okay.
That's hard.
So what actually happened was Christian, he was telling Pliable about how awesome it's gonna be once they get over to the place they're going.
Wicket fence.
Yeah, the wicket gate. And once they get over to the final destination and whatnot, and Pliable's like, "Oh my gosh, that sounds so awesome! I can't wait till we get there." And at the first sign of hardship, he's like, "Okay, I'm out." And he runs off after like maybe an hour of mud and like sinking into the mud and whatnot. And Christian, he's just continuing and going, and then this one person comes.
Help.
Yeah, help comes.
See.
Help comes from the Lord. Oh my gosh.
Oh.
And he gets him onto these steps and shows him the way he's supposed to go. I'm gonna hand it off to Dad, who's gonna read us a story.
Hi. So the characters in this story are very cleverly named. It's almost like they are named after their role in the story. Who knew? All right. So that was chapter 4, Slough of Despond and Help. So now we're on chapter 5, which is actually chapter 4, Mr. Worldly Wiseman. Now I saw in my dream that by this time Pliable was got home to his house. So his neighbors came to visit him, and some of them called him wise man for coming back, and some called him fool for hazarding himself with Christian. Others again did mock at his cowardliness, saying, "Surely, since you began to venture, I would not have been so base as to have given out for a few difficulties." So Pliable sat sneaking among them, but at last he got more confidence, and then they all turned their tails and began to deride poor Christian behind his back. And thus much concerning Pliable. Now, as Christian was walking solitary by himself, he espied one afar off come crossing over the field to meet him, and their hap was to meet just as they were crossing the way of each other. The gentleman's name that met him was Mr. Worldly Wiseman. He dwelt in the town of Carnal Policy, a very great town, and also hard by from whence Christian came. This man, then meeting with Christian, and having some inkling of him, for Christian's setting forth from the city of destruction, was much noised abroad, not only in the town where he dwelt, but also it began to be the town talk in some other places. Mr. Worldly Wiseman, therefore, having some guess of him, by beholding his laborious going, by observing his sighs and groans and the like, began thus to enter into some talk with Christian. Mr. Worldly Wiseman. "How now, good fellow, whither away after this burdened manner?" Christian. A burdened manner indeed, as ever I think poor creature had. And whereas you ask me, whither away, I tell you, sir, I am going to yonder wicket gate before me, for there, as I am informed, I shall be put into a way to be rid of my heavy burden. Mr. Worldly Wiseman. Hast thou a wife and children? Christian. Yes, but I am so laden with this burden that I cannot take that pleasure in them as formerly. Methinks I am as if I had none. Mr. Worldly Wiseman. Wilt thou hearken to me if I give thee counsel? Christian. If it be good, I will, for I stand in need of good counsel. Mr. Worldly Wiseman. I would advise thee, then, that thou with all speed get thyself rid of thy burden, for thou wilt never be settled in thy mind till then, nor canst thou enjoy the benefits of the blessing which God hath bestowed upon thee until then. Christian. That is that which I seek for, even to be rid of this heavy burden. But get it off myself I cannot, nor is there any man in our country that can take it off my shoulders. Therefore I am going this way, as I told you, that I may be rid of my burden. Mr. Worldly Wiseman. Who bid thee go this way to be rid of thy burden? Christian. A man that appeared to me as a very great and honorable person. His name, as I remember, is Evangelist. Mr. Worldly Wiseman. I beshrew him for his counsel. There is not a more dangerous and troublesome way in the world than is that into which he hath directed thee, and that thou shalt find if thou wilt be ruled by his counsel. Thou hast met with something, as I perceive already, for I see the dirt of the slough of despond is upon thee, but that slough is the beginning of the sorrows that do attend those that go on in that way. Hear me, I am older than thou. Thou art like to me with, in the way which thou goest, wearisomeness, painfulness, hunger, perils, nakedness, swords, lions, dragons, darkness, and, in a word, death, and what not. These things are certainly true, having been confirmed by many testimonies. And should a man so carelessly cast himself away by giving heed to a stranger? Christian. Why, sir, the burden on my back is more terrible to me than all these things which you have mentioned. Nay, methinks I care not what I meet with in the way, if so be I can also meet with deliverance from my burden. Mr. Worldly Wiseman. How camest thou by thy burden at first? Christian. By reading this book in my hand. Mr. Worldly Wiseman. I thought so, and it has happened unto thee as to other weak men, who, meddling with things too high for them, do suddenly fall into thy distractions, which distractions do not only unman men, as thine, I perceive, have done thee, but they run them upon desperate ventures to obtain they know not what. Christian. I know what I would obtain. It is ease from my heavy burden. Mr. Worldly Wiseman. But why wilt thou seek for ease this way, seeing so many dangers attend it? Especially since, hadst thou but patience to hear me, I could direct thee to the obtaining of what thou desirest, without the dangers that thou in the way wilt run thyself into. Yea, and the remedy is at hand. Besides, I will add that instead of those dangers thou shalt meet with much safety, friendship, and content. Christian. Sir, I pray open this secret to me. Mr. Worldly Wiseman. Why, in yonder village, the village is named Morality, there dwells a gentleman whose name is Legality, a very judicious man, and a man of a very good name, that has skill to help men off with such burdens as thine is from their shoulders. Yea, to my knowledge, he hath done a great deal of good this way. Aye, and besides, he hath skill to cure those that are somewhat crazed in their wits with their burdens. To him, as I said, thou mayst go and be helped presently. His house is not quite a mile from this place, and if he should not be at home himself, he hath a pretty young man to his son, whose name is Civility, that can do it, to speak on, as well as the old gentleman himself. There, I say, thou mayst be eased of thy burden, and if thou art not minded to go back to thy former habitation, as indeed I would not wish thee, thou mayst send for thy wife and children to this village, where there are houses now standing empty, one of which thou mayst have at a reasonable rate. Provision is there, also cheap and good, and that which will make thy life more happy is, to be sure, there thou shalt live by honest neighbors, in credit and good fashion. And that is the end of chapter 5. And chapter 6 is called Sinai and Evangelist. And the first word is now. And we're going to find out whether or not Christian takes Mr. Worldly Wisdom's advice and decides to go to this town named, what was it called? Morality, and meet the gentleman named Legality and his son Civility. So we'll find out maybe about those things next time. In the meantime, I encourage you to study your Bibles and pray every day. God bless you. Have a good day.